Shalom, y'all. Strap in, because we're going back 3,000 years. By the end of this lecture, I don't know what else to call it. By the end of this lecture, we're all going back in a time capsule, okay? You knew your Bible as comfort, right? When you need a prophetic utterance in your life and there's no prophet to be found, you can go right in that word and find a prophecy that will fit your life, that'll walk you through what you're in. Would you agree with me? Okay. In your deepest heartache and despair, it's got answers to pull you out. But were you aware that it's also a cookbook? Oh my. Now, my lecture today is on plants of the Bible. Actually, it's part one. We could take a month of every day just like this, and we never get through the prophetic, profound things that are there that represent the plants of the Bible in our lives, okay? Just in our lives, much less the scientific data on the health and the healing virtue of it, all of that. So, but my secondary, I wrestle with the Lord over this one. I said, Lord, can you give me a little bit of liberty with this title? So my secondary title, when you're in university, they make you do a main title, and then it's a ... after that, and then the subtitle to the thing. My subtitle to this thing is Ain't No Witchcraft Here, Just Really Good Food. Okay? And I did my master's degree on this, and that's how I can stand here and tell you it's a deep well of information. And this particular thing that I'll be talking on is pretty much basically the food side, although there's still a lot more to say about the food side, okay? So we will start with this, and I need to hold on to this. Let me see. All right, I got it. All right, now, just a little dusting off here, the basics. We are in the Passover season. We are in Feast of Unleavened Bread, okay? So there's a first fruit offering that's offered at this time of year. God's people normally give in Israel to whatever, things that they feel is a good investment for their money. So if you've been thinking about where to put that first fruits offering, I want you to pray about sowing into this ministry. Nobody told me that. This is off the record. But I just want you to be advised that when you sow your seed, something miraculous happens to your life. Like, I'm not the name it, blame it, grab it, blab it or nothing, So I'm not going to sow in $100 and expect $1,000 after it. No, I'm not telling you to do it for that. That's plain old everyday greed. But if you need a miracle and you're believing God and he prompts your heart, okay? Not that you want to call down anything out of heaven, okay? You just want the Lord to do something special for yourself and somebody else. Won't you pray about sowing into this ministry? And God bless you on whatever decision you make on that. Okay, so let us go. We think of the Bible as spiritual help. Have you considered the Bible as a dietary guide? Even in famine, we have a recipe that will feed the body when our favorite foods may not be available. Folks, we are right there. Yeah, we are right there. In this time of year, the celebration of Pesach or Passover gives us time to inspect our dietary lifestyle. And I say that with all truth, because when I lived in Israel, in one of the moshavs in the times that we were in, we hauled our refrigerators from the kitchen out to the front porch, okay? We were so concerned about yeast. Now, I'm not telling you to do this. I'm just telling you how some people do this. We're so concerned about leavening in our life, okay? We would haul the refrigerator out to the front steps, empty it, and take a garden hose and wash it out, okay? Symbolically, sometimes we just need to take the hose, the water hose of the Holy Ghost, and just run it across our lives. It is easy to look at spring cleaning concept as preparing our bodies to strengthen for the summer work ahead. All the hiking, gardening, and home repairs give our bodies a challenge. To successfully meet this challenge, the Bible gives us plants that improve physical endurance, builds immunity, provides nourishment to ourselves, and increases longevity. So let's talk about what the creator of our world told us to eat. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Chava, or Adam and Eve, were instructed to eat plants. Genesis chapter 1 describes the several Hebrew terms. Strong's 6212, eshev, refers to herbs, but sometimes it's translated grass, even though the Hebrew word for grass is Strong's 1877, deshe. Remember that the bread we eat comes from what is considered grass, okay, grass seeds. By the time we get to Exodus chapter 9, we find that one of God's punishments on Egypt was destroying herbs by hail, even destroying barley and flax. Barley was the most nutritious of the cereal grains. It was considered in that time poor man's grain because that was what they could afford. The wealthy, the more wealthy of the folks, they opted for wheat, okay? But wheat was not as nutritious as barley, okay? Flax seeds were used for food, and the flax fibers became linen. There are Egyptian hieroglyphs describing their system of medicine, which uses herbs for food and medicine for 4,500 years, and one of them is flax. And they spun very, very fine and pure burial garments, okay, with the flax itself. But they did use the seeds to press out for oil and for food. When you press out the flaxseed oil, what's left is all the stuff that's left when you press the seed of his oil. And you can feed that to the cattle. Anyway, so in essence, what God did with the hail, he destroyed the food and the clothing and the cattle food with the hail, just the hail. Okay, so by the time we get to Exodus 10, we have a description of God's punishment on every plant that escaped the hail and was eaten by locusts. The wheat and the spelt were destroyed as well as the trees. Wheat is high in gluten while spelt is low in gluten. Understand, if you got gluten issues, you may want to consider spelt rather than wheat. And I'll explain a little bit more about it when I get to the table. Okay? With 2 plagues alone, there were 10, food and clothing potentials were wiped out for both rich and poor. When you take out the wheat, remember that was the rich man's bread. They took out the hail took out the poor man's bread. The locusts took out the rich man's bread. It is no wonder that David writes in Psalm 104:14, if you're writing that down, he causes grass to grow for the cattle and herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth. The plants to bring forth food out of the earth. In the next verse, David tells us that God gives mankind bread to strengthen his heart. So we know that God intends that our bread be wholesome. Can I say that word wholesome again? Okay. So let me ask you, does that stuff you are buying at your local grocery store meet God's standard of wholesome? What somebody told me recently, it was a couple of months ago, he said, Dr. Deb, I just want you to test your bread. I want you to go and buy some white bread at the market. And I want you to take a slice of it and boil it. Just boil it, okay? Throw it in some water and boil it. He said, if it's all grain, but it's GMO grain, understand it's still not going to be good for you because it's GMO grain. But he said, when you boil it, it should boil out completely. I mean, become something like a soupy looking stuff. If there's still fiber still floating, it's probable you're dealing with plastic in your bread. And you are eating that unawares. Yeah, consider that. You think they want you dead? Yeah, I think they want you dead. And I think they're going to give you free plastic sacks to take your dead food home with so that you will recycle your free plastic sacks and they will recycle it back into your food. Better consider that, folk. It's time to break some other kind of chain. Wouldn't you agree? The grocery chain. I'm off mic on. I ain't going to say no more. So in Exodus chapter 12, we are told to eat the roasted lamb with bitter herbs. Where's my person? You got hyssop? So somebody loaded my, yeah. Hang tight, folks. It's coming. What I did, it was out just so you could check behind me, okay? Because some of these pictures of these plants I could not load. I can load the ones that are off copyright. The lithograph, can you make it a little bit? That's the flax, okay? See that pretty blue flower? That's every piece of it. That's from something like a lithograph from 1887. Anything that's more than 100 years old, you can use it in your lectures, in your whatever you want to do with it. But anything newer than that, you've got to have permission from the author. So I thought the best thing for me to do is to direct people, if they take notes of the plants that I'm writing about, if they'll just go to Wikipedia. Now, Wikipedia ain't always dead center right. I'm going to be honest with you. But you will see the plants up close, okay? And if there's a copyrighted picture, you can at least see it without going to jail. If I give it to you here, these precious people are going to suffer, okay? That ain't my intent. My intent is to educate you, okay? Not to throw you in jail. Okay, so there's the flax. The next one should be hyssop. Come on, brother. Ah, you did it. How'd you do that? Ah, hang on just a minute. I won't be off camera. I'm so sorry. I love you, doctor. Check you after the lecture during lunch. Thank you. Okay, so this is hyssop. Okay, I have some hyssop. Stay with me now. They call it in the Middle East za'atar. It is this plant, okay, dried, and then they throw sesame seeds and sea salt, and sometimes they'll add another spice called sumac into it, and you sprinkle it over your bread or over your chickpea, your hummus, your chickpea dip, okay? So, but what's important about this herb? Why am I bothering to mention it? Because we're still in that Passover season. And Moses was told to roast the lamb in bitter herb. Okay. But first, I want to talk about, yes, the bitter herbs, because bitter herbs improve digestion. Sometimes meat is so heavy. And, I was looking through the Jerusalem Talmud on this because it was a mystery to me that the priests had swelling in the feet. And it wasn't because they were on their feet all day. So I went into the Talmud. That was the most direct way I could look at it. And the reason their feet swelled? Because they ate too much meat. They probably had gout. Okay, remember, part of the priest system was to receive the offerings. Now, some of the offerings went directly to the Lord, the whole animal, the fat, the blood, the everything. But some of the offerings were specific. You can take, the right thigh or whatever else. That's your portion. But the rest of the sacrifice goes to the Lord. Okay. So it depended on what sacrifice they were doing. But when they got that piece, that portion that was theirs, they were allowed to eat it. Okay. So one of the bitter herbs is this. With the exodus of the Israelites, food would need to be digested before the long journey on foot took place. Remember, they were to eat the lamb roasted with bitter herbs. And then they were supposed to prepare for the death angel passing over their house, and then they were to get up and walk out. Okay. Belly full of meat, even today, it may sit in your digestive system for days. Okay. And when doctors are dealing with doubt, they're going to issue you some herbs similar to colchicine, and they'll tell you, lower your intake of meat. So I know that the Jerusalem Talmud has to be correct on this issue. The ancients aren't always correct, but it gives us insight into what may be going on historically with issues with people. Bitter herbs at the Passover table represent bitter, hard, long bondage and slavery. In the same passage, we find hyssop mentioned. Why was a hyssop branch used to put the blood on the lintel and doorposts? Because hyssop is an anticoagulant. Yeah, it's an anticoagulant. We see it used several times in the Bible. The priest would take and dip the hyssop branch in the basin of blood and strike whatever need to be struck with it. Can you imagine? Okay, you're going to bleed the animal, right? Okay, it's hanging in a position where it's going to bleed out from a slit in its throat. It's rendered automatically unconscious when you do that. The animal does not suffer. The knives were extremely sharp. Don't cut yourself with a sharp knife, okay? I mean, the minute it went across their throat, they were unconscious, and the blood, and they started the blood draining process. I don't know if you've cut yourself just recently, but your PTT time, your blood clotting time is going to be somewhere shortly before 2 minutes, maybe, before the blood stops, dripping off your finger. Okay, that's your natural coagulant producing fibrin that's closing that bloody wound. So you're going to need an anticoagulant if you don't intend for any blood you put in a basin to coagulate. Hyssop is good for that. Now, I don't suggest you go out there. First of all, I don't suggest warfarin. Okay, rat poison. Some people are on warfarin to thin their blood. I do not even suggest that you can substitute warfarin or any of those anticoagulant drugs that they're producing and handing to you for hyssop. That's not my intent to tell you that. But it did work for these people, the hyssop. Okay. A modern herbal, M. Greaves, that was produced somewhere in the 1800s, states that hyssop was used by the Greeks to cleanse sacred places. You got that? Cleanse sacred places. Okay. Medicinal actions include toning the stomach, heal bruises, cuts, and used externally as a rub for rheumatism. I have essential oil of hyssop right here. If you get a chance to pass by the table, take a whiff of that stuff. If you get a chance. Whew. So, the infusion of hyssop has an agreeable flavor and is used by herbalists in pulmonary diseases. No wonder King David wrote, Psalm 51:7, purge me with hyssop. Purge me with hyssop. Have you ever wondered, well, why is he talking about hyssop? It's because it's an anticoagulant and it's a purgative. And I shall be clean. On the cross, Jesus was offered a sponge soaked with sour wine or vinegar, and the soldier held it up to him with a hyssop branch. That's John 19:29. Okay? Hebrews 9:19, where it goes over the priestly thing and it's in relation to the new covenant. Hebrews 9:19 discusses the sacrificial system and its use of a hyssop branch. It was used. The details are in Leviticus 14 and Numbers 19. 1 Kings 4:33 mentions hyssop as one of the plants King Solomon spoke about. He obviously knew a lot more about hyssop than the Book of Modern Herbal. Now, I'm going to discuss something. While I'm saying it, you could probably turn to Matthew 23:23 or Luke 11:42. Both of them say pretty much the same thing. We are ready to move on to, I think it's rue. You should have number 3. Rutagraviolens. Both Matthew 23:23 and Luke 11:42 discuss Jesus' criticism of the Pharisees and their attitudes of the heart. Woe to you, Torah scholars and Pharisees, hypocrites! You tithe the mint and dill and cumin, yet you have neglected the weightier matters of Torah, or the law, which is justice and mercy and faithfulness. Okay, the next seed we are going to is dill. No, yeah, dill. Oh, mint. Next one is mint. Okay, so while that picture is showing, let me move on just a little bit. So, why all the fuss? Why was he making a fuss about this? Can we go over and look at Leviticus 27, 30, and 31? Let me take you there just for a minute. Just so you know, Messiah was pretty put out about this, okay? Okay, and we are reading. All the tithe of the land, whether from the seed of the land or the fruit of the trees, belongs to Adonai, for it is holy to Adonai. If a man redeems anything of his tithe, he must add a 5th part to it. So, did they owe the tithe on the mint and the dill and the rue and the whatever? Yes, they did. They owed it. But the rabbis were so stuck on putting their finger on the people, making them pay the tithe rather than justice and mercy, which is what the Lord operates with us out of. So let's talk about the rue before the mint. The flowers are bright yellow and has a citrusy kind of taste in tea. The Sephardim out there over by Gaza, they drink a lot of this stuff. It is used to flavor olives when we would harvest and preserve our olives. I have drank a tea with rue in it, although too much of it can cause sun sensitivity to lighter skinned people. The Sephardi Jews seem to use it a lot, and I haven't seen issues with them. Luke the physician mentions rue because he probably prescribed it. Hippocrates wrote that rue was the chief ingredient as an antidote for poison. Rue. Rue on rue. Okay. The Greeks attributed it to being able to ward off witchcraft, and in the Middle Ages, it was used around the neck to ward off witches and spells. Italians eat it in their salads, believing that it preserves your vision, heals the eyes, according to the Italian culture. Farmers believed that feeding it to chickens prevented chicken croup. Have your chickens had chicken croup yet? No, not yet. Okay. Well, it's a similar thing. If you could find you some rutagraviolins, they'll eat it and they'll help. And the cattle, it was fed to the cattle too. Culpeper suggested using it for earache. I saw a lot of remedies for earache. Synagogues have sprigs to fragrance the air during Yom Kippur to revive the spirits of those fasting. And we have an expression in English called rue the day. Anybody hear that? Rue was a symbol of regret. Symbol of regret. So it is known as a herb of grace. Now let's go over to mint. This may refer to the entire family of mint. There's a lot of mint, folks. There's spearmint, there's peppermint, and there's some that we don't call by mint that's in the mint family. Okay? So mint, broad speaking, mint. So that's that one right there. I believe it's peppermint. And that's from 1887. Just so you know. Beautiful, ain't it? Wow, I wish I could draw like that. All right. So you know a lot about mint, right? Have y'all bought them trash bags that smells like mint? Yeah, they're at dollar store. You can buy them. They're fragrance with mint, and they keep away roaches and bugs. Bugs don't like it. I plant a lot of different kinds of family of mint along with marigolds in my garden, and they are pesticides. Yeah. Bugs stay away from them. They don't want to eat your cucumbers, okay? I got to make pickles in August. I don't know what's on your itinerary, but I'm counting on my mint family and my marigolds to keep the bugs off of them. Along with that, if you got bees and you want bees, plant as much of the mint family as you can find. Oh, they love to hover over the beautiful flowers in the mint family. And oh, what a blessing they are. Oh my, they came back actually a couple of weeks ago in the area that I'm in, and I was just so delighted that they were hovering, and my tomatoes just started blooming, and I'm like, go over there. The mint is over there, people, to the bees. Okay, moving right along, we have dill, and that's Anethum graveolens, dill. There she is. Hey, I loaded it right, ma'am. Ain't you proud of me? On my computer, it would not load. I don't know how many times I tried it. It didn't work. But our beloved Crystal way back there, hey, Miss Crystal, thank you. She rescued us rather than having to go through all of these pictures to find the right one to the point of lecture that I get to. Hats off to everybody. that helped this poor wretched person with this. You know, David, when he went over and conquered, you know, there were 200 men that were too tired to go over with him and fight. And when they came back with everything that they recaptured, that the people that went out to battle with him didn't want to share it with the 200 that remained behind. But David said, those people stayed behind in the camp. They helped in the camp. They did everything they could, and they waited for us to assist with whatever else we needed to bring everything back to us. So Crystal and Dr. Deb, they are part of that 200 that was blessed with the bounty of blessing. They partook in the spoil. All right, so the next one, let me see, wait a minute. I ain't done with ranch dressing. Okay, dill. The oils contained in dill are very similar to caraway and caraway seeds. Dill seeds soaked in vinegar make a very nice salad dressing. Soak the seeds for a few days before using. Dill is one of the spices of ranch dressing and is great to season fish. The French use it in cake making and sauces. Dill water is used for colicky babies still in the Middle East. Okay, we're moving right along to cumin. And I've got some, I didn't open the spice jars, just so if y'all wanted to see what the spice looked like, rather than the 1800s lithograph, they're here. Okay, here's the cumin, itty bitty. And I think King James renders this fitch, if I'm not mistaken. Cumin is used for stomach issues. Don't buy it already ground because it loses its flavor rapidly. Isaiah 28, 23 through 29. Can we please go there just a minute, y'all? Let's look at this incredible passage. Let's just take a moment. You know, with everything, the plants that God gives us, it requires great wisdom to get a decent crop out of the ground. It really does. So I'm going to start with 23. Give ear and hear my voice. Pay attention and hear my words. Does a plowman plow all day to sow seed? Does he continually break open and harrow the ground? No. When he has leveled its surface, he scatters dill and sows cumin, plants wheat in rows, places barley and rye on its borders. This was the scheme of planting back then. Okay, this tells you most anciently how the agriculture, a lot of the agriculture that is formed today came off of this floor plan, for lack of a better term. Continuing on. For his God teaches him judgment, instructing him. For dill is not threshed with a sledge, nor is a cartwheel rolled over cumin. Rather, dill is beaten out with a staff and cumin with a rod. Bread grain is crushed, but not endlessly. Rumbling cartwheels and horses over it would only crush it to powder. Okay, so this is kind of a warning that maybe our grain system that we have today, where we grind fine flour, may not be exactly quite as healthy as we think it is. Okay, I just wanted to show you this beautiful passage because we all need wisdom, whatever. If you're in agriculture, even if you've got a tiny garden space in your backyard, you got to pray some wisdom over the harvest. We're in the harvest of souls right now, right? And we're always praying wisdom. Nobody thinks nothing about going out to their garden and throwing a little seven dust. Never do that. On their plants, hoping to get their cucumbers that they're going to turn into bread and butter pickles, that the seven dust or some of those are forever toxics. So you're going to wash them as good as you can wash them, but you throw that into a pickle mix and you boil it and you can it. Congratulations. You just got canned 7 dust. Okay? Just a little extra over there. Okay. I'm going to switch gears. And I did this out of my great wisdom. Not. We go take a rabbit path. The next one is mandragora. Okay. I want you to look carefully at this plant. See, they've got them in picture form on Wikipedia. Okay? But they're copyright. I'm not going to do nothing evil to you. You go over there and look at mandrake. Mandrake. Okay, that's one of the pictures. Notice it's got legs. You see that? Can you hit me with the other picture? Yes, ma'am. It'd be 7B, I think. Okay, this is from 1560. Can you see they all have arms and legs? Okay, that root goes down 4 feet and it gets thick. And I didn't even try to tell you all of the ancient legends about the evil that is surrounding in harvesting this plant. Okay? There is a wicked, wicked history on mandrake. And where do we find mandrake listed? Rachel or Rachel and Leah. They're fighting over mandrakes. And why are they fighting over mandrakes? It's a fertility drug. Okay? It's a poor Rachel or Rachel, as you call her. She needed help. She had no babies. So she knew that one of Leah's sons were out there harvesting them, the mandrakes, for Leah. And so apparently, you can read into this, read it for yourself. It appears that at least some of every month, Jacob was living with Rachel, and not Leah. Of course, they don't live with their women. Some of this, it works different. If a woman is on her menstrual cycle, either the man moves out for the period of the menstrual cycle, or the woman goes into the menstrual tent, depending on how their tribe set this thing up. So apparently, Jacob was living with Rachel, and so she offers to trade a night. Oh, ladies, you don't want to get into this, right? Don't you read the rest. We got mixed people watching this, okay? All right. So okay, so that's Genesis chapter 30. Read the whole chapter, okay? Because it will tell you the mix-up and the match-up. When a man doesn't get 2 wives, he gets 4. Okay? All right, so throughout history, mandrakes have been used as a fertility herb. Women who were unable to conceive would ingest the herb and give birth successfully. It had a pleasant smell. The pleasant smell of mandrakes are spoken about in Song of Solomon 7:13. Herbalists today consider it poisonous, but scientific research has found that there is evidence that it really is a fertility drug, and they can synthesize herb, the chemical. They can make a fake chemical of the mandrake and give it as a fertility drug to people. Now let's talk about the legends. Legends abound of its difficulty in harvesting because the root goes 4 feet deep and it is shaped like a man. Some medieval writings talk about harvesting at night, like you're sneaking up on a man to like capture him. Yeah. Some medieval writings talk about harvesting at night, and its nickname was Satan's apple. Woo. And was used to drive out demons by making a tea with its root. Okay, so us deliverance ministers up here, we ain't gonna make teas out of this stuff, okay? We're going to do this honest. Witches of that era used it in magic potions because they believed it caused altered mental states. And that's from A Modern Herbal, which was printed back in 1800s. I love that book. I reference that book as much as I can. And that's pages 510 to 512. According to Josephus' Wars of the Jews, chapter 2, section 6, it was used to drive out demons. It has hallucinogenic properties. So tell me how you can get somebody into this hallucinogenic state and drive out a demon. You might exchange demons. You might get one out, but the other one goes in. So you have just exchanged demons if you've done it by a hallucinogenic drug. Okay? Just a little bit of information. Now I need to discuss something. And why is this particular section important to us? Because the book of Enoch, the real book of Enoch, by the R.H. Charles translation. Understand, the book of Enoch, we found it at the Dead Sea in Qumran. Was put there about 160 years before the birth of Jesus. So we know it's real, some of the portions. And I have been able to verify the R.H. Charles translation. The problem is the devil tries to corrupt everything we got, people. Everything, the rainbow, everything. He's corrupted it. So what I want to tell you about this is that why is this important? Because the fallen angel, according to the book of Enoch, chapter 7, the fallen angels came down and they taught women makeup. They taught the use of poisons and herbs that will, they're abortifacents. That's a medical term, abortifacient. That is something that will get your baby out if you don't want him. Okay? And the book of Enoch writes in that period of time that women wanted to keep their beautiful figures. So they were constantly using abortifacents. They were constantly, they were trained by the fallen angels, by the Nephilim. Let's call them Nephilim freak shows today. We got their kinfolk probably in caves somewhere around here. I don't know. But yeah, they taught them how to do this. And so as a result, we've got witches in everything that's good that God produces. Don't let them tell you this is witchcraft. Didn't I just read it to you out of the Bible? Okay, it goes back. The reason I mentioned Enoch is it goes back to a time when the fallen angels was corrupting everything and teaching humans how to make poisons out of the blessings God gave us, okay? So moving right along, Miss Dale, I'm sorry, overshook. It would be ficus. Aha, yeah. Figs are portable food once dried, just like raisins. Figs are considered one of the 6 species of the land of Israel. And where I had fig trees and running alongside the olive trees, and they produce twice a year. And they look right ugly. They don't, it's like they look like they're dead. They got no leaves on them till a certain point they get leaves. And by then, this little wasp that goes to pollinate the flower, the little brown flower, it closes over that wasp. And that becomes the fig. What's specific about the fig is that the fig leaves were sowed in the Garden of Eden. That's Genesis 3:7. To hide their nakedness. And it's used as medicine. That white sap, I don't know if y'all have taken, how many of you eat fig? Okay, then you know that there's a certain part of the fig, it's like this much above the stem. You cut it off because it's like this latex white sap that runs out of it. Now that's the purple fig and the white fig, okay? It's 2 kinds that I've ever grown. But what I'm saying here is that those figs, that sap, that latex stuff has a drawing property. And you see that happen. 2 Kings 20, verse 7. 2 Kings 20, verse 7. It's where Hezekiah, he's dying. And then Elijah comes in and made a poultice of fig. Well, what he probably did was like sliced off the latex part and pounded it up, and it was all gooey with that white latexy runny stuff, and put it on that cancerous thing, and it healed. Okay, they're using it somewhat similar. Like some people say it will take warts off. I don't know. Figs can be a sign of judgment. Jeremiah 24:1-4-8. God gave Jeremiah a vision of 2 baskets of figs, one ripe, one overripe. Rotten figs. So he's talking about judgment and going into exile when he uses figs. And the fig tree incident where Jesus cursed that fig tree. And that represents failure. Failure for a harvest. Folks, failure for a harvest. We're in harvest right now. Don't fail the harvest. And that's Mark 11:20-21. Fig tree is a sign of prophecy. And Jesus refers to the final days before his return in Mark 13:28-29. Okay. I do want to discuss, let me see what's next. Can you hit me with, okay, that's coriander. Okay. Okay, this is coriander. Okay. When you grow cilantro, there's seeds that come off of it. I love fresh cilantro. And it looks like this. This is my own coriander, and y'all can look at it. Okay. Coriander is an interesting herb. Numbers 11, verses 7 and 8. Now the manna was similar to coriander seed and had the appearance of gum resin. The people went about, gathered it up, and ground it in a hand mill or crushed it in a mortar. They cooked it in a pot or made it into cakes. It had the taste of like something made with olive oil. What they gathered out there, they were fed with manna. Psalm 78:24-25 says it rained down manna upon them to eat and gave them grain of heaven. Grain of heaven. Man did eat the bread of angels. That's what it says. Man did eat the bread of angels. He sent them abundant provision. Okay? So you're welcome to open this up and take a seed or two and taste it. And then you'll have a feel for what manna tasted like and this bread of heaven thing. Okay, so what I have talked about right here, we have arrived to the table. We now have enough information to make bread. Yeah, we do. Ain't no witchcraft here. Okay? Okay, so let's all turn over to Ezekiel 4:9. This is our cookbook part. Although there are other recipes, like the fig thing. That's actually a recipe. You cut that latex sap off and you apply it to a boil and it sucks out the poison, I guess you might call it. I'm still trying to get to Ezekiel. How come I never... It's a brand new Bible, folks. It's rough to find a Bible I agree with as a translator. But I agree pretty good with this one. It's by the Messianic Bible Society. It's called The Tree of Life, and I have the large print. And I like the translators. I have talked with them. I like them. And I struggle as a translator, let me tell you, because we're all sitting on that in that meeting, and we're trying to determine the right word that should be translated on these very ancient manuscripts of the New Testament in Hebrew. And a lot of times we have to go back. We start with what it means today. What did it mean 500 years ago? What did it mean 1,000 years ago? What did it mean 1,500 years ago? Any word? We have to go way back. And sometimes we all get in there and we're disagreeing. So we just table the meeting and we all determine we're going to our prayer closets and we're going to settle this with God, what He wants said about this particular thing being translated. So, yeah, this is it. And I'm going to read it to you. It starts with 4:9, but I need to prepare you for something here. Ezekiel is talking about the coming siege of Jerusalem. They are about to be taken captive, but first, they're going to be shut up in their city. And when you can't get out of the city to get any food, you're going to starve to death. So he talks about making what is not what we call today the bread of famine or the bread of affliction. You can make this in your kitchen, okay? Learn to make it. It's so easy, okay? And if you've got a freeze dryer, you can freeze dry it, put it away, seal it up, and you've got something nutritious to eat. Understand that this is real food. You don't have to test it, boil it down to see if there's any plastic in it, okay? So let's read this recipe, and we're going to break it down portion by portion. Okay, take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and rye, and put them in one bowl. You will make bread from them for the number of days that you will lie on your side. 390 days you will eat it. And you'll measure it out. 20 shekels a day with some water. So what I did was I took and I baked some. Understand, we're still in unleavened bread, so there's no yeast in this. I could slice portions, slices off of this, and eat it, and it will sustain me. If there's nothing else to eat out there, that I may rather have a salad or whatever, but I can live off of this. The Bible says I can live off of this. Ezekiel lived off of this for 390 days. Okay? Right here. There's 4 of them for you to look at. But what I did was I took this recipe and I figured out how we could make it in our modern kitchens using the things that we've got here. But it's an ancient recipe, okay? So what I put in one bowl, actually I put it in a jar similar to this. But what I do is I want to grind the beans with the barley and the millet. Beans, barley, millet. And I'm going to put it in a food grinder and I'm going to grind it up. Okay? And you can look up here what that looks like after the flour is put in it. But you grind that up, okay? And you'll put it in a jar. And you'll fill the jar with water up to just about maybe a quarter of an inch above. And why is that important? Because beans, barley, millet, where's it here? Orange lentils. I used brown and red lentils. And there's brown and red lentils. I took packages that have not been opened because I wanted you to see what the package looked like. You know, people can get up front and make all kinds of recipes, but you're going, where do I buy that? What does the label look like? Where can I find it? Okay, all of these were found in the Village Nutrition Center. Okay, except for my stuff. Okay, this came from Poland. This is barley from Poland, and it's barley grit, but I ground it up even further. Okay, so you've got that's going to soak overnight. And why? Because beans swell. The barley will swell. You do not want to add your flour and this without swelling it first. It's going to taste, when you make it, it's going to taste like rocks. Okay, you're chewing rocks because it's going to suck all of the water out of the final batch that you make. Plus, it's still going to be needing water because what's going to happen is you'll have a quarter of a cup of your beans and grains, the millet, the barley, the red lentils, the brown lentils, and you can use for the beans, you can use pinto beans, you can use dried chickpeas, all of that. And you can grind it up. That's your beans and your grains. Okay, so it's going to make quite a mass. By the time you get a quarter of a cup ground up in a quart jar, okay, and you add that water, and you're going to set it in the back of your refrigerator, and you're going to let it swell overnight. Okay, it will double in size. You know, you'll have 2 cups of this. It looks small, but by the time it's swollen up, you will have like 2 cups of stuff you had to grind. Okay. And now we take it out of the refrigerator, and now this is where the fun begins. Okay. Because you can modernize this recipe. You can throw raisins and whatever you want into this. Okay. So you're adding your flours next. I have einkorn, ancient grain. I have a cup of that. This is spelt flour. Remember, it's low in gluten. Einkorn is higher in gluten, but not as high as some of the modern wheats, okay? So if you got people in your family that are totally gluten intolerant, you can make it all out of spelt. There's nothing wrong with that. But understand, when you go to make leavened bread, you've got to accommodate this recipe with a little more yeast, because yeast is the lift. You understand how your bread gets all puffy? Happens by a yeasting process. Gases operate on the grains and it puffs up. And that's the white or the brown puffy bread that we are eating today. Also, the dark rye. Okay, so it's a cup each of spelt, a cup each of your wheat, and a half a cup of dark rye. Now, I'm not a rye person. Some people may be rye people. Some people may prefer to make it all out of rye. It's your decision. It's your recipe now, okay? I gift it to you. I don't know anybody that's making it this way. Okay? And what I do for fun, I throw in a tablespoon or 2 of ground flaxseed. Okay? Let's add some lignans to this recipe. And I added date sugar, a tablespoon of date sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. But you know, if you don't have date sugar, I just wanted something authentic, okay? You can add honey. You can add barley malt. If you don't have that, then grab your normative sugar, okay? But you've got to have a salt and sugar balance, okay? So now we are going to get to, what do we flavor it with besides the salt and sugar for balance? We may put some coriander, cardamom, cumin. Remember we discussed cumin? I have my own garlic that I harvested wild, and I ground it up. I got a little bit left over. I could add that to it. I added it to the dip here. So, yeah, all of these things, dill, hyssop, anise. King James, I think it was Wesley. Was it Wesley? One of the original translators before King James translated the New Testament. He rendered one of these herbs as anise. So I brought you anise so you can see how close it is to cumin. Very close. So, but we know more about ancient Hebrew than they did when they translated that first 1611 Bible. Okay? All right. So all of that goes into a batter with oil. Okay. So there's a third a cup toasted sesame oil in this. You could also use virgin olive oil. But the third a cup oil is essence because it's going to hold the recipe together. Okay. So this is what it looks like. Looks nasty, don't it? Yeah, this is what it looks like. Okay, so you got this nasty looking blob in your bowl. Don't give up on it, okay? Don't throw it in the trash. Please don't. It does beautify. So you take one of these. This is a pie crust bag. There's the label to it, okay, in case you need to buy one. But this is what happens. Now, I put a blob of it in there. You got to add a little bit of oil to the bag, okay? You add a little bit of oil to that bag so that you can peel it off, after you roll it out. Now, this is at this stage, it's a lot like making a tortilla, okay? Anybody made tortillas in this room? Oh, yeah. Well, you're going to be right at home when it gets to this stage, okay? Because essentially, after this stage, it's flat, it's ready for the pan. Now, I use cast iron for this phase when I'm cooking it. And since it's Passover, I'm going to take a fork when I get it in that pan, the grease pan, slightly greased. We're not frying it in oil. And I'm going to poke the surface of this after it's in the pan. And why? Because it represents the blood of Jesus on the cross. He was pierced, right? And it will be striped by the time you're done cooking it. It's a total of, I think, 18 minutes is what I usually have it. But every stovetop is different. Okay. So you're going to want to make sure you don't put it on too high. Okay. Because you want to cook it thoroughly before you're going to put it in, before you serve it, flip it. You're going to flip it one time, 9 on 9. Okay. So looks a lot prettier now than that blob in that bowl, don't it? So what I had hoped to do was have enough time to make one so you can see it. But during lunch, I've got enough time to make a few, and you can see what it looks like when I'm done with it. So that part of this is tabled. Now, okay, so we're at a crossroad. We've got an unleavened bread. I can't teach you how to make leavened bread. We're in Feast of Unleavened Bread, and I can't do that. But I can tell you, when we're done with Feast of Unleavened Bread, what I will do is add 3 teaspoons of yeast. And people who normally bake their bread go, oh, no. How can you add that much yeast to that formula? It ain't that much that you got in the bowl. Well, I've got a lot of stuff that are low glycemic. Low glycemic equal no rise. No rise. Okay, excuse me. No gluten. No gluten. No gluten means no rise. And the glycemic index is low on that. That too. So it's something you may want to consider if you're diabetic and your doctor said, well, I don't want you eating that white stuff that you're buying at the store. It's got too much sugar in it, et cetera, because you may want to try a taste or two of this. People that cannot digest that stuff, that are living on these horrible formulas of guar gum and, I don't know, cornstarch and disgusting. I don't want to think about it. But if they'll just try an ancient recipe, what I just gave you, low gluten, okay, they will do just fine. They should do just fine. They should recover just fine. Now, we've got this beautiful, let's pretend it's cooked. Can we pretend it's cooked? Doctor, thank you. We pretend it is cooked, and we're like, okay, what do I do with this thing? It's real simple. The traditional dip with that bread is this. I started it here, okay? It's called hummus. And these are chickpeas that are cooked. Don't try this with raw. Please don't. You will miserably fail. Okay? Miserably. The secret that Middle Eastern cooks have is getting that little fibrous shell around it. Can you see that little thing? Each of these chickpeas has it. Okay? And I'm going to squeeze it and you see it. Well, that thing adds bitterness to the hummus. You can throw it in there, you know. I mean, you can add it straight from the can. These are canned garbanzo beans. And I've got bags of these chickpeas so you can see what it looks like, dry. I make my own, generally speaking. And I will season it with a little bit of chicken grease so that it tastes like something. And then, buddy, it's wonderful. Add just maybe a quarter of a teaspoon of baking soda to it when you're done cooking it so that it pulls the gas out of it. Okay? But you're going to shuck all of these chickpeas before you put it in your blender. And when you blend it, you'll blend it with 3 tablespoons of tahini. Got that? That is sesame seed, ground sesame seed. Okay. And then I add about 3 tablespoons of lemon juice to it. I'll add some salt. And now we can get creative about what particular spice we want to use. Because I'm throwing in my own garlic. And this time I think I'm going to throw in, when I cook it, I'm throwing in some cumin, I think. And I think I want to add one more. I don't want dill. Ground coriander. Yeah, I'm going to use the ground coriander this time. The cumin and the coriander with it. Okay? So you take this. You pull this out of the blender, okay? I need my hand. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. Next step. Let's make a well. Now you see how nicely ground that stuff is. But you can make it chunky. There's nothing wrong with chunky. When you're in the Middle East, you can buy it chunky. I prefer it chunky. So I made this little well inside the middle. Okay? And then I'm going to take and I'm going to fill that well with olive oil. It's a really good, great olive oil. And it is glyphosate tested. So you're safe. And I just opened it today. They saw me crack the bottle on it. You know, the seal on it. Ain't no witchcraft here, folks. It's just real food. Okay? Okay, so you got this. I can't tip it. You got this well. Now we still ain't done. We still got to doctor this and make it really, really yummy, right? So here is where your hand comes in. Because what I do, remember the hyssop? Man, oh man, it's good to keep a cold away. I'm opening it. I did not bring anything already open, folk. You are watching this. This is live. I tore the seal. See that? Fresh bag of za'atar. Any questions? It was sealed. Okay, and buddy, the smell. Ah, Oh, can I taste your smeller? Yeah, it's something your mom does. Yeah. You in my crowd. Anybody else want to smell? Yeah. You can take it to tea. Or the best way to do it. Hypocrisy, let your medicine be your food, and your food be your medicine. I'm taking prescriptions, folks. I don't. I'm 70 years old. Yeah. Well, while y'all are sitting, let me grab a handful and throw on the food. While y'all pass it around, okay? So don't put your hands in, okay? I have some here. Yes, it is in the regular family, but you don't get the same taste, I'll try it. Because I'm reversing my bones in history. The bees love it. Yeah, it really is. Oh, very good. The whole respiratory system. So now I'm going to take this and baptize it in the name of the Lord with my Za'atar. Do you see that? Baptize with Za'atar. Za'atar. Remember, brother, this man encouraged me to do this because on his Zoom meeting, he went to discuss these herbs. And I'm like, should I tell him I've got a master's degree? No, I won't. I'll just do a really nice display and we'll see how he likes it. So then I'm not done. There is in this particular za'atar, there are sesame seeds already in it. At this point, if you got a za'atar that is oregano based, you can throw your sesame seeds in there. Ain't nobody going to treat you like a criminal if you do. But I add one more thing because I really love tahini. Tahini. This is creamy tahini, unsweetened, only sesame seeds. So it's pure. I opened it in the kitchen. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this, okay? My intent. Man. Okay. And I'm just going to drizzle it around the outside. Hopefully it'll drizzle for me. And just drizzle it around the edge. Okay? So when you dip your bread, you slam your bread in there at 20 miles an hour. And you'll get every single flavor in this bowl. Okay? So then, but I'm not done. Did you want to lick the spoon? No? Okay. Okay. Here I have, again, from Village Nutrition, Divina, organic Greek olive mix. Now, if you're going to serve olives to children, they should be pitted. These, unfortunately, are not. Did you hear that seal pop? Uh-huh. Okay. So what I wanted to point out here is that I'm going to take and put these itty bitty olives around the outside as garnish. Okay. So, folks, let me tell you about the nutrition on this. This is the full meal deal, okay? You take a piece of bread that size and you go through the hummus or with tahina and olives and all of the spices, and man, you got a full belly. You know, where's the meat? Well, if you're going to do some 3,000 or 4,000 year recipe, you'll just go ahead and grill you a slab of chicken. Please use the bone in. Don't use that GMO manufactured, created in the lab stuff. If it ain't got a bone in it, don't buy it. Okay? So there it is. Just at 20 miles an hour, slam that bread in there. And you'll come up with every single flavor in this bowl. Okay, I have one more thing to say. Ooh. That's going to be nice, ma'am. Forgot to bring a towel. Forgive me. Whoops. Sorry. I have just one more thing to say. Can you hit me with the last one? The hidden messages in water. I need to talk about this book because when I was doing my PhD research at Hebrew University, somewhere around that time, this guy came out with this book. And I was not pleased with the assumptions. You know, scientists can give you fact and still come to the wrong conclusion. Okay? Let's hear my conclusion. I can't show you any of the pictures in that book because I'll have a copyright strike. Okay? But I can show you what I took from Amazon. That's the cover of the book from Amazon. Okay? What's significant about this book? It tells you what blessing does to water. Blessing does to water. Aren't we something like 80% water? Plants, plant blood is high percentage of water. Don't remember right offhand. Most everything except these dried up flowers here, grains, all of that, are a very large percentage of water. So this man took a period of time, a lot of years. I think he died in something like 2016. I followed this man because I wanted to come to a righteous conclusion for God's people. Okay, do you see that that's water? They took multiple, there's hundreds of these pictures. And they took the glass of water and they spoke blessing. They spoke love. They spoke everything merciful into that water. And then they froze it. You just created the Star of David. Now that one don't look so much like the Star of David, but there are pictures in the book that look exactly like the Star of David. So the thing you have to understand is the Star of David is found in nature. Now, like the rainbow, it got corrupted. It got assigned a new name. But you will see it when you look at the pictures. What happens to this is that it forms the Star of David when blessing is in it. Then they took other glasses of water and they spoke curses into it. Messages of hatred into the water. You can't see it here. You know, if you look at the pictures online, they spoke curses. And what happened was, with those curses, is that the water turned brown and misshapen. It wouldn't go into a water molecule that looked like this. Okay, what's our takeaway? I'm going to get hard on you now. Forgive me, but don't forgive me. If we aren't praying over our food, we are in trouble. We don't know what the witches have done to our food in the processing plants. We better be praying over our food. It contains water. And all of the bottled water, no telling what kind of chemicals to preserve it, to keep it from clouding the plastic. No telling what that is. But we can speak prayer over our water and our food. And God will reshape it into His plan and program. Understand, we have changed seasons, people. God has an economy. God has gold and silver. That's the financial economy and barter. But we also have His economy. Stay with me now. I need to stick close. Food and medicine are His economy. Righteous food and medicine, righteous medicine, are His economy. That's what this is. We're putting righteousness back into our field of influence. Be quick. I got a prayer. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Go right ahead. You know, it's just like I read you. There's a second reason why I put the book of Enoch in here. Is because from early on, the devil and his minions have been corrupting everything that God has blessed. Man and wife in the garden got corrupted. Everything. What's the answer to this? God's economy is He's restoring what belongs to Him back to Him. We take back what He stole from us. How you want to sort this issue, I got one more piece of information, and that is the Sword of Solomon. If you ever get a chance to see the Sword of Solomon, okay, it was fashioned, I think, at the time that David was still alive, because you got the hilt of the sword. This side is the creatures that stand, the creatures God created that stand to the side of the ark. On the right side of the hilt, you got the angels that press over the ark. Dead center of the hilt, you got the Star of David. We learned about banners last week, didn't we? Come on. We learned about, I believe King David had his own banner. And I believe it was something in nature that God created. Star of David. By the time Solomon gets it, guess what happens? It takes him 7 years. I did this research in Hebrew University. Okay? And what happened was 7 years, King Solomon fell. Everything good and wisdom and pure and holy about that man. He did political marriages. He got all of the daughters of his political opponents. And you know, what you marry into a family in that era, you can't make war on them. Okay? So he made covenants with evil entities. And by the time God is ready to destroy his whole system, the rabbis of that era, I found it. I found it in the Hebrew library what happened. He was so corrupted, the rabbis got together. I call them rabbis, the priests, whatever you want to call them at this point. They said, this man is so evil, and he's going to corrupt the whole world if we don't seize his writings. We do have writings from him when he was in his righteous phase, okay? We've got Ecclesiastes, we've got Song of Solomon, we've got Proverbs, and some of the Psalms. You don't have them. There's, I don't know, maybe, I don't know how many out there in Qumran that you have not laid eyes on, but I have. And some of them were written during the time when Solomon knew how to do deliverance. And how he did deliverance, sister, can I deliver you a minute? Can you stand up just a minute? She ain't got nothing, but I need a body. Let me have this. Let me have this. Can I have your satchel? Okay. And And Josephus, ancient historian, writes this. Can you come over here, ma'am? Okay. This is what the ancients saw Solomon do. Okay. You're going to need deliverance. Can you stand a little farther over here? Okay. Very good. Now, let's pretend this is a bowl. Can we pretend this is a bowl? And it's a bowl right behind her. 2 feet. No issue. It's just sitting there. Ain't hurting nobody, is it? This is how he did deliverance. And the priests of that era wrote that God gave him this process to extricate demons. Understand, Jesus hadn't died for the sins. His anointing wasn't on them. So they apparently had a different system that they were doing this with. Okay, so let's pretend I have just delivered you. Okay, like I've spoken a confession, you have spoken a confession, the demon leaves. How they knew the demon left, it tipped the water bowl behind them when it left. It tipped the water bowl behind them. And that's how they knew a person was free and clear of demons in that era. I don't know if we could do it that way now. I don't want to do it that way now. That ain't my point. You can sit down, ma'am. Thank you so much. God bless you. Okay. We don't even want to do that now because we have the blood. We have the covenant with us. But I want to take just one more moment. Ezekiel 47:12. On the river, on its bank, on this side and that side will grow every kind of tree for food. Its leaf will not wither, its fruit will not fail. It will bear new fruit every month because its water flows out from the sanctuary. Hey, you think if we looked at it under the microscope, we'd see something like these guys saw, pure. Okay? It will bear fruit every month because its water flows out from the sanctuary. Its fruit will be for food and its leaves will be for healing. There is proof that God is going to restore biblical medicine. Its leaves and its fruit. The final end of this, Revelation 22, verses 1 and 2. Then the angel showed me a river of the water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb down the middle of the city street. On either side of the river was a tree of life bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit each month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Hey, you are going into biblical medicine. Your future is not pharmaceutical. It's what God created for you from the beginning.